Next on the news.
Good job!
On the rebound, Catholic school enrollment is up across the country, and the Diocese of Brooklyn is at the top of the pack.
We've made great efforts in our diocese of trying to increase enrollment.
Then, in the window, the U.S. says Russia has amassed almost enough military might for a full-scale invasion as world leaders scramble to defuse the crisis in Ukraine.
She's a great pioneer, a great woman of courage, great educator.
Plus, honoring Mother Mary Lang, the trailblazing immigrant from Santiago, Cuba, who could become America's first black saint. And one of the most popular pilgrim destinations, Our Lady of Lourdes, is closed for the first time in history. But now it's back, thanks to a creative drone pilot and his technical skills. Currents News starts right now. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jessica Easthope, in for Christine Persichetti. After a difficult few years for Catholic education, we begin with some good news. Enrollment is up. Many Catholic schools are making a comeback in some of the largest dioceses around the country. Among those leading the way, the Diocese of Brooklyn. At one school in Bell Harbor, they've seen such an influx, they're running out of room. Space is tight on the walls in the hallways of St. Francis de Sales Catholic Academy. That's because it's been 20 years since the school had this many students.
We've made great efforts in our diocese of trying to increase enrollment and let people see the value of Catholic education here in Brooklyn and Queens.
New data from the National Catholic Educational Association shows enrollment in Catholic schools nationwide is climbing back toward pre-pandemic levels. Enrollment this year is up almost 4%, and the Diocese of Brooklyn is near the top of the list, with elementary school enrollment growing 2.4%. St. Francis de Sales Catholic Academy had 569 students last school year. This year, there are 638.
The interesting thing is how the enrollment has grown this year.
Frantic, excellent.
Judy Lindner says her students have adapted seamlessly.
Let's go to Jack.
Watching her over and sometimes through plastic shields.
We are the church.
Her first graders don't take up too much space, but next year there'll be more of them.
And because we are growing in enrollment, now Mr. Scharbach is able to make the first grade into 3 classes.
And it's not only first grade that's had to modify.
It used to be our cafeteria.
As enrollment climbed, Principal Scharbach has had to transform the entire school.
One thing that the pandemic has had us do is to really be creative in how we structure a school.
About 10 minutes left.
He says it's sad to see so many people forced out of Catholic schools by the economic effects of the pandemic, a problem they've tried to keep under control at the school.
We tried to be a little bit more understanding, trying to work with them around it, and we also have a tuition assistance committee for anyone who has, fallen on tough times.
St. Francis de Sales' motto is anchored in Christ. Staff says that mindset has kept them afloat.
We continue to put faith first.
So as the school continues to make room, repurpose, and squeeze in where they can, Mr. Scharbach says it's the artwork, prayers, and projects on the walls that remind him a Catholic education is a gift. Besides the Diocese of Brooklyn, here are some of the other top dioceses seeing spikes in enrollment. Among some of the highest numbers, the Archdiocese of Miami saw a 5.4% increase over the last year. Enrollment in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia is up 2.5%. The Archdiocese of Cincinnati saw a 1.5% increase. That same number showing up in the Archdiocese of St. Louis. And finally, the Diocese of Cleveland saw a 1.2% increase. New Jersey schools and child care centers will no longer have to mask up to protect against COVID-19. The end of the statewide mandate was announced by Governor Phil Murphy on Monday, citing the rapid drop in new cases and hospitalizations after peaking in January. The new policy will go into effect on March 7th. Individual school districts may still require masks if local officials choose. That news has New Yorkers wondering if they could be next. The Big Apple saw cases plunge 43% last week, down from the previous week where just over 96,000 new cases were reported. Governor Kathy Hochul hinted she may relax or lift some pandemic restrictions if the numbers continue to decline. This as the deadline for renewing indoor mask mandates for businesses is just days away. Hochul credits the mask mandates and other measures with reducing the spread of COVID hospitalizations and deaths. And in the Diocese of Brooklyn, church leaders are waiting for Governor Hochul's appeal to make its way through the courts after a Long Island judge struck down a statewide mask mandate, only to be reinstated by the appeals court. School officials would prefer the mask mandate be optional, but will be following the state's guidance. Catholic schools in the diocese remain open throughout the Omicron surge. The Diocese of Brooklyn is honoring Black History this month. St. Martin de Porres Parish celebrating a Mass of Thanksgiving this past Sunday. That parish is made up of 3 churches, one of which includes St. Peter Claver. That's the first African-American church established in the Diocese of Brooklyn. It was founded by Monsignor Bernard Quinn, who is up for canonization. And to another first, she died 140 years ago this week and is known in the Archdiocese of Baltimore as a trailblazer for her work in education. Now, Mother Mary Lang is about to receive a community honor that may soon be followed by one even greater, to perhaps become the first Black saint in the United States. It's a special day for students and staff at Mother Mary Lang Catholic School in Baltimore.
Today is the anniversary of Mother Mary Lang's death, so today we'll be having a mass in her honor.
The coming of your glory.
In honor of the 140th anniversary of her feast day, Archbishop William Laurie and the Oblate Sisters dedicated and blessed the chapel in the first new Catholic school built by the Archdiocese of Baltimore in nearly 60 years, named after Mother Mary Lang.
She's a great pioneer, a great woman of courage, great educator, and I couldn't think of a better role model or a more appropriate person to name the school after.
The trailblazing Black Catholic woman was born in Santiago, Cuba, and immigrated to Baltimore in the early 1800s.
She opened up a little school in her home in Fells Point. By and by, founded a religious order and opened up what is today St. Francis Academy, and founded the Oblate Sisters of Providence, the only African-American community in the world.
Now, Mother Lang is on the path to become the nation's first Black saint.
She helped a lot of unfortunate people to help them to get the education that they needed, and that is something that I hope to do one day.
And continues to inspire future generations to follow in her footsteps for years to come.
It's very nice to see an African American woman to love Jesus and to not let anything stop her, even though all of the adversities that she faced.
Mother Lang's cause for canonization to sainthood is under review by the Vatican. She is currently a servant of God. Her cause for beatification has been open since 2004. Mother Lang joins a list of 60 other Americans who are making their way through the process toward canonization. Also tonight, the clock is ticking.
Any day now, Russia could take military action against Ukraine.
What could be the largest invasion Europe's seen since World War II?
Only a fool would start a war.
Can a deal be made to stop the crisis in Ukraine? The White House says the timeline for Russia's march further into Ukraine is, quote, now in the window. The Russian military is in position. The big question now, can it be stopped before it's too late? Karen Kaifa has the latest.
As tensions remain high along the Russia-Ukraine border, the West is urgently looking for ways to rein in Moscow.
The whole question of Kyiv is preoccupying both of us, and the whole of Europe is at a critical crossroads here.
Looking to cool the temperature, French President Emmanuel Macron became the first Western leader to sit down with Russian President Vladimir Putin since the standoff over Ukraine began.
I think that today's discussion will start off at least a process of de-escalation.
While in Washington, President Joe Biden welcoming new German Chancellor Olaf Scholz to the White House.
Working in lockstep to further deter Russian aggression in Europe.
The new chancellor's willingness to confront Moscow over Ukraine has been questioned, given Germany's reliance on Russian energy supplies.
It's an important meeting at a very, very important time.
The very diplomatic efforts are being conducted with the hope that enough unified pressure on Moscow will force a détente. As 4 sources say, new intelligence shows some Russian officials worry a full-scale invasion would be costlier and more difficult than the Kremlin realizes.
Any conflict would be protracted, it would be painful, it would be sadly bloody, and it would be a genuine mistake for Russia to pursue this as a course of action.
Russia isn't backing down, instead building up more advanced deployments near Ukraine's border in Belarus and Crimea. and setting up infrastructure, suggesting Russia may be preparing for a longer-term conflict. In Washington, Karen Kafa, Currents News.
Despite the dangers, Ukrainian Catholic priests and nuns are vowing to stay in the country. The major archbishop to the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church speaking to their bravery during a virtual conference by Aid to the Church in Need.
Those priests who are staying there with our people, they are heroes of our times, I have to say. But that was our policy and will be our policy, even if God forbid, new occupation will be happening. We stay with our people. So our priests, our nuns, will be staying with our people.
The Apostolic Nuncio to Ukraine also saying that a number of parishes and Caritas staff have humanitarian assistance points along the conflict line. In the meantime, Ukrainian forces are training for urban combat in Chernobyl's radiation exclusion zone. It's a no man's land there now, but the area where Ukraine and Russia are about to face off is also known as the Three Sisters, a place where Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia meet, where people have celebrated friendship and family for centuries. Right now, Melissa Bell tells us there's more nostalgia there for the past than fears about war.
Through the forests of northern Ukraine, it appears. The Chernobyl nuclear reactor, a monument to humanity's ability to unleash uncontrollable forces. Suddenly, the apparent calm left behind by the 1986 Soviet-era accident is broken. Ukrainian forces run drills in what remains a radiation exclusion zone, free of any inhabitants. They're practicing urban combat. Of course, this is also an information and propaganda war. Everyone waits for Russian President Vladimir Putin to decide, even as Ukraine questions an earlier U.S. assessment of just how imminent a potential invasion is.
So we have the same facts, but the different perception or different estimation.
The difference is on the question of intention. You don't believe they intend to invade.
I hope that in Kremlin they didn't make their decision still.
But Chernobyl is only 10 miles from the border with Belarus, where Russia has been holding joint military exercises. These just some of the 30,000 Russian combat troops that NATO has warned are on their way, welcomed with bread and salt and open arms.
To the east of Chernobyl lies this neutral zone between Ukraine, Russia and Belarus. It's known as the Three Sisters Crossing in memory of a time when the three countries were all Soviet republics. But more than 30 years on from the collapse of the Soviet Union, Belarus is a staunch ally of Russia, while Ukraine fears an invasion.
Barely visible through the freezing mist across the border in Belarus, a Soviet-era monument to the sister nations. And at the Three Sisters Cafe on the Ukrainian side, there is more nostalgia for that past than there is worry about war. Masha, a 64-year-old great-grandmother, works here to supplement her state pension, worth the equivalent of just $77 a month, she says.
Will Putin go to war with civilians? He won't do that. I have brothers and sisters living in Russia, in Belarus. I would dissolve the parliament in Kiev, kick them out of parliament, every last one of them. They should give the people proper pensions so that people won't be beggars.
The nearby village of Sankivka is only a 3-hour drive from Kiev, but feels much further. This man won't tell us his name for fear of being labeled a separatist. He too misses the unity of the past and certainly doesn't appreciate visits to Kiev from the likes of the British Prime Minister.
Boris the uncombed comes here, only whipping the tensions up. Only a fool would start a war.
Nobody will come out a winner, he says. Nobody. Melissa Bell, Sankivka, Ukraine.
If Russia were to invade Ukraine, the Chernobyl exclusion zone could be a route into Kiev. There are now an estimated 30,000 Russian troops in neighboring Belarus, according to NATO and American officials, up from 5,000 in January. There's a lot more news headed your way. Thousands in Memphis are still without power days after a massive ice storm took down power lines and tree limbs. Back in the Big Apple, bus drivers are asking for bulletproof vests after a stray bullet hits an MTA bus, narrowly missing a passenger inside. And there's a new way to visit Lourdes virtually. We'll tell you all about the drone pilot who's making the shrine accessible again.
There are now some big changes to the tablet website. You can get personalized access to the Catholic news you value. Sign up for free at thetablet.org.
The massive winter storm that slammed much of the country just days ago left more than 300,000 people without power. And one of the hardest hit cities was Memphis, Tennessee, where thousands of residents still have no heat or hot water. And as Brandon Richard reports, they want answers.
This sound echoed through many Memphis neighborhoods Sunday. Crews working to clear tree debris from Thursday's ice storm. But many people, like Patricia Gatlin, would rather hear the sounds so many of us take for granted. The fridge, the coffee maker, the TV, the heater, the sounds of home. Like tens of thousands of others in Memphis, Patricia hasn't had any power in 4 days, and she feels like she's been forgotten about.
We went out Thursday morning before 9 o'clock, and we haven't seen anyone in our neighborhood yet, and they're still not here.
Not one MLGW truck?
Not one truck.
Patricia says that she spent the last few days caring for her 83-year-old mother, who lives just a few doors down and who is also without power. With overnight temperatures dipping below freezing, she dresses in layers and also makes several trips to her car throughout the day to try to warm up.
I come out here at least 10 to 15 times in one day because it gets so cold that the crown of my head hurts and my chest starts hurting.
While MLGW leaders plead for patience, promising everyone's power will be restored soon, Patricia says the utility should have been better prepared and should have learned from previous storms like the ice storm of 1994.
But this one was nowhere near as bad as the 94, but we're suffering the same consequences. So what have we learned as a city?
It's a question many are asking, especially those still without power 4 days later.
That was Brandon Richard reporting. Gatlin says if her past experiences with power outages are any indication, she's not expecting the lights to come back on until Tuesday. As the cold weather persists, the Diocese of Memphis is taking those working to restore power and offering up prayers for the thousands still suffering the after effects of the storm. Writing, "We deeply appreciate all the area volunteers and their outreach shelters for protecting those in need. We pray for those going through power outages and who struggle to find safe and warm shelter. Many blessings to all." Shocking video is making the rounds on social media showing thieves trying to smash and grab items from a Louis Vuitton store in Westchester, while mall security does nothing. This is the second time that mall just north of New York City has been hit. Robbers targeted a Burberry store there in the past few weeks. White Plains police say they're investigating both incidents. Growing violence in the city has bus drivers asking for bulletproof vests. The call happening after a Harlem shooting where a stray bullet missed a passenger by mere inches. According to union reps, this is the fourth time in 6 months a bus was struck by gunfire. Police say no one was injured in the shooting and no arrests have been made. No-knock warrants have been banned in Minneapolis thanks to a moratorium made by the city's mayor. The announcement comes after police shot and killed 22-year-old Andre Locke while executing a no-knock warrant as part of a murder investigation. Locke wasn't named on the warrant. The mayor says the no-knock warrant moratorium will stay in place, quote, until a new policy is crafted. The city will bring in 2 national experts to review Minneapolis police policy and suggest revisions. Still to come on Currents News, want to fly to Lourdes? Well, now you don't need a plane ticket. We tell you how you can visit the popular Catholic destination from your own home. Plus,
I've been working on it, reading it. I've been reading every one of them.
103 envelopes for a 103rd birthday. We introduce you to the birthday boy getting well wishes from around the country. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. During the height of the pandemic, one of the most popular destinations for pilgrims, the sanctuary of Our Lady of Lourdes, closed to the public for the first time in its history. So one entrepreneur used his drone piloting skills to transform the experience, creating a free tour online where viewers can enjoy the shrine virtually. The pilot was given rare exclusive access to the shrine while working on the project and was in awe of its vastness.
When you're alone in the sanctuary, you feel very, very small because it's very huge, and you can't see how huge is the sanctuary if you're not alone, I think, in this place. And for a Christian, it was something very exciting and very impressive.
The tour includes visual and audio guides with historical information about the shrine, as well as background information on the Rosary and other Marian prayers. Again, the virtual tour is free and available online. Just go to uheritage.com or to the Sanctuary of Lourdes app. All around the country, birthday wishes came in for a World War II veteran last weekend. Orland Phillips wanted exactly 103 cards in honor of his 103rd birthday. Brittany Weir reports from Virginia that he exceeded that goal more than 10 times over.
What have we got here?
103, an age not many of us expect to see.
Growing older is mandatory.
To celebrate, Orland's daughter posted on social media asking the community to send him birthday cards.
Well, we've done it a couple years before and had pretty good response, but this year we decided 103 would really be a good idea to get 103 cards.
That social media post was shared over 500 times, and those 103 cards quickly grew to over 1,000.
I don't know what to think about it. I'll let me cards. I've been working on it, reading. I've been reading every one of them. That don't look like a front to me.
The Army veteran served as a machinist in World War II on the Pacific Front, so a lot of his birthday cards say,
"Wishing you all the best and thank you for your service."
After this has happened, anytime we see anybody that's older, we'll definitely send them a card. We've seen requests before, and this means so much that we'll definitely do that in the future.
Orland now has homemade cards from local second graders.
Well, it's a good pastime. I'm glad to see them.
He receives a stack of cards each day and pays attention to where they all come from. So far, he has cards from 45 different states.
Brookfield, Wisconsin. Yeah, thank you.
His family has a book writing down who sent the cards and from where. His message to everyone sending cards?
Oh, yes. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
That was Brittany Weir reporting. Orland celebrated his birthday on Saturday with a big pizza. And that is Currents News. I'm Jessica Easthope. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.